Topic here is the film Milk. So in class, we at this point probably have finished watching the film Milk about the life of Harvey Milk, the first elected gay politician for San Francisco's Board of Supervisors, and he runs as an openly gay candidate. So we know that Harvey Milk was killed by Dan White, as well as the mayor of San Francisco. And so here we're just going to be looking at some of the questions, looking at some of the information here. So in the film, Harvey Milk talks about the decision to have all homosexuals come out. And I think what they're arguing here is you could, make a villain out of any other group, whether we're talking about, um, somebody Jewish that somebody wants to for some reason make a villain. And this case, we're looking at homosexuals. So I think what Harvey Milk's trying to do here is, you're less likely to discriminate or have such negative feelings once you befriend one of these others. And so by making everybody come out, that might put people in a position where they know somebody. This definitely is an issue that's going to come up, and it will probably come up in the test. Probably use a document that addresses some of the information here. How did the class help you better understand the film? So you want to think about the things that we covered in the class and what we were able to notify. This particular image here is looking at the movement for Dan White, as you can, kind of track where he goes and where he winds up shooting individuals, how he enters the building and so on. Keep in mind, Dan White did reload his weapon, although he does argue the Twinkie defense. And so we bring up this question here about teaching about gay rights history in class, making that information mandatory, and what that will eventually lead to. So the GLSEN school study has been published since the early 2000s. They've been addressing this particular issue, and they have identified high school and middle school as the most homophobic institutions in America. And one of the things they've been arguing for is to have an inclusive curriculum that includes gay rights history into history classes. Here, these are just some of the information from that particular study. I don't recall what year I pulled this from. So it says here 2015. I know I have a couple of their final reports on the site. So they could go back as far as the mid 2000s, 2007, somewhere around there. So here we see, representation of LGBT related topics taught in a classroom. And here we just see none, negative, and then we see positive. So I think the argument here is by teaching about the subject matter, you are going to, create an environment where people are going to feel safe, where this becomes normal. What I mean by that, when you're having a conversation and you're teaching about the history, that we look at it through a lens of, these individuals that we're referring to, they're not deviants, that they've been a part of our history throughout, whether you want to go back to the Civil War, American Revolution, and it's not just kind of an afterthought. And of course, you have the other argument that says you're going to indoctrinate by teaching this information, people are going to be more likely to become homosexual. So I don't know what side of the argument you're on, but keep in mind, one of the reasons GLSEN constantly advocates for LGBT in the curriculum is because you seem to have a list of suicides, students struggling or teens struggling with sexual identity. And here we see the suicide note from James Hubley, some of the information that he had left behind regarding his decision. And he seems to place blame on those individuals that bullied him and made him feel like he was not a human. And he mentions that information, right here. And sad to say that he finds his peace in death, and he doesn't find it on earth or within American society. This is a message from Harvey Milk, 1978, and I'm asking the question here about its relevancy to today. Here he talks about having a dialogue, and you can break down prejudice, which is possibly the reason why you want to have this in the curriculum. Also, why you want to make sure for Harvey Milk that people are coming out. But I do recognize that by coming out, you're going to put people in a position where maybe they might be targeted. Uh, so here we see the role of race and gay rights. As we're looking at the Asian community, they're mentioned here the Black community. The film Harvey Milk or Milk is from the documentary The Life and Times of Harvey Milk. If you click this link, it'll probably take you to the trailer. Here we just see some photographs of Harvey Milk when he was alive. Here he is with the mayor. Milk for supervisor. And I have to point out that many of his followers, people that were in his inner circle, do go on to do some work in, you know, LGBT history to try to make change. Here we see Cleve Jones, who had organized the AIDS quilt. After you see many homosexuals dying from the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. Here we see Harvey Milk protesting the Briggs Initiative, which was recreated in the film. Here we see some language of Prop 6, and what they were trying to pass. Again, this was mentioned in the film where they talk about homosexual conduct and homosexual activity. And here they're simply trying to define what that looks like. And notice how they're targeting the teacher because the teacher is in a position using this logic to indoctrinate the student into homosexuality. Some additional links that will take you to Harvey Milk in the film with the dog campaign, the debate for Prop 6, and here we have him meeting Briggs. So feel free to click these links, take a look at them. They also mentioned Anita Bryant. We talked about her during the sexual revolution. And these are the items up for discussion that we will talk about in class.